Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to talk about the upcoming patch 7.4. There are going to be quite a bit of changes happening for this patch and a whole bunch of nerfs. And like before, the idea and the purpose of this video is to keep you updated and get you in the loop so you know exactly what to expect. You don't have to go and read through all of the boring wordings and text for yourself, and then you go into the patch and be ready to go. So as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video and you want me to continue doing this for future patches, let me know by simply pressing that like button. And maybe down in the comments below, let me know which of the changes do you think will be the most impactful for patch 7.4, which is coming in just a few days. But without much further ado, let's get right into the big changes, starting off with the very first one. This one isn't going to be an actual buff or nerf, but instead it is going to be all random ultra rapid fire mode, or in other words, AR. I believe this game mode will be coming out sometime during this patch, but I'm not 100% sure either. But I did more or less just want to bring it to your guys' attention because this game mode is a lot of fun. I'm sure many of you know exactly what URF is, but if you don't, it's essentially a game mode where every single ability has about like an 80% cooldown reduction, so you can pretty much spam almost every single ability in the game. You have unlimited mana, you have unlimited energy, or sustain for your HP costs, and you just are essentially playing League of Legends on steroids. You're going off, you're pretty much flashing left and right, and you're just spamming the hell out of your abilities. It's a lot of fun, but if you also throw in the all random kind of element to it, then you really don't know what you're playing. You're not going to be always playing against the very OP champions in this game mode, and for the most part I feel like it can make it more fun. But again, the point was just to sort of bring it to your guys' attention that the game mode will most likely be coming out in this patch. Another change that's coming into this patch is going to be a nerf to the turret First Blood. Now, whenever you kill the turret for the very first time in the game, you get extra gold and a lot of it just for kind of being the first person. It's kind of an incentive to try and push for those objectives. Well, currently it gives 400 gold whenever you destroy a first turret, but now it'll be lowered down to 300 gold, which is a pretty decent hit. 100 gold is 100 gold, especially at that stage of the game, but at the same time it's still damn worth it. 300 gold is still quite a bit, but at the same time, now if you were to trade, let's say, top First Blood turret for maybe Fire or Mountain Dragon, it will be definitely much more of a worth kind of trade, and it'll feel much more even. Following this, there's also a bunch of changes to Masteries, which I'm going to try to cover as fast as I can. So first, all the changes to the non-Keystone Masteries, the first of which being Bounty Hunter, which now has been nerfed to 1% from 1.5% and giving you increased damage per unique enemy champion that you've killed. Double-Edged Sword has been nerfed to only give you 3% bonus damage, but in turn you only take 1.5% additional damage yourself. And Battle Trance has been lowered to only give you 3% of extra damage over 3 seconds rather than stacking up all the way to 5 for 5 seconds. So the nerfs here are just to sort of lower the power that this tree is giving you in offensive capabilities, because even when tanks would spec into this, they would be dealing a little bit too much damage than they should be, and there would be just simply too much strength and power coming out from the non-Keystone Masteries. So lowering this will sort of make it a bit more easier to balance champions as a whole. But then in the Cunning Tree, Merciless has been lowered as well, giving you only up to 3% increased damage to champions below 40% rather than 5%. And Meditation also being lowered, giving you a little bit of less mana regeneration, and Precision, obviously with lethality being insanely overpowered at the moment, has also been lowered with how much lethality and magic penetration it offers. And last but not least, in the Resolve tree, Fearless will now give you only 1.5 bonus armor and magic resistance when damaged by an enemy champion for 2 seconds, rather than giving you 2. So all in all, a bunch of nerfs happening to these non-Keystone Masteries in several trees. Again, the Masteries have been somewhat too strong for the most part. They're trying to lower them down and make it easier to balance champions for the champion themselves, rather than also having to take into account these insanely strong Masteries that are just giving a little bit too much power when they shouldn't be. But with that being said, there are also some changes happening to the Keystones, so let's go over that very quickly. The first of which is going to be Warlord's Bloodlust. Lifesteal against champions based on missing health has been lowered from 20% all the way down to 15%, and the reason for this is quite simple. Warlord's Bloodlust, especially late on to the game, when you have an ADC just going ham on the auto attacks, is insanely overpowered. The amount of life that they're getting back, especially when they're constantly critting, is quite strong. This Keystone can even make you skip lifesteal items for the whole game, or at least wait until very late, just because of the sheer amount of lifesteal it already offers. Next to that, we also have some changes happening to Fervor of Battle, where the stacks of Fervor duration has been increased from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. Now finally, something is at least getting a buff because everything else has been getting a nerf. Again, the whole idea is because, well, there's no point in nerfing Warlords, Bloodlust, and Fervor of Battle. Usually it's one is a nerf and one is a buff, because now they're trying to put more incentive in trying to pick up Fervor of Battle, especially for ADCs or even other champions, since people aren't really taking it all that often anymore. But now let's finally talk about the champions themselves, the first of which being Cho'Gath receiving a somewhat of a rework. Now I did talk about this already in a video that I'm sure most of you know, but I will touch on it once again very quickly. His E ability now has a new max rank at 10 stacks and a new size overall, and his ultimate is getting some huge changes. It now not only scales on AP, but it also has more stacks that you can gain overall, aka Cho'Gath will be much larger, but it also scales off of your HP as well, making you want to build tanky Cho'Gath much more frequently. It will now cap at 10 stacks. The bonus health per stack has actually been a bit lowered. He no longer loses half of his stacks on death. He no longer gets 2 stacks from a champion kill. Kills on minions and monsters no longer refund 50% of the cooldown and cost on the ultimates. The AP ratio on damage has been lowered to 50%, and it will even tell you what you have currently eaten, so you know exactly what you've been using your ultimate on and what you maybe can still use it on and things like that. Even though this isn't really all that helpful, it's more of just good to know. So overall, putting Cho'Gath in a more kind of reliable spot where you're not just building him full AP and either landing your stuff or you're not. Now he's going to be a bit more of an actual tanky type champion, someone that can soak up damage and truly be in the front line while also being a good damage dealer. Next up, we have a very slight buff to Bard, but I want to bring it up because Bard has really fallen out of flavor and I almost never see him, so maybe this will slowly bring him back into the meta. But essentially his passive, whenever he picks up a chime, he now gets more movement speed on the base and per stack per chime. Not the biggest buff in the entire world, but maybe this will slowly put the spotlight back on Bard and people will slowly start to pick him up once again. Moving along to the next nerf for this patch, we have Corki. Corki has been seeing quite a bit of gameplay over in the mid lane because not only is he safe, he's quite reliable and he brings in a bunch of mixed damage, so building resistances against him is not very easy. So the nerf is as follows. His ultimate has been hit pretty damn hard. The base damage has been lowered by 35, again only at rank 3, at rank 1 it's only been lowered by 25, but even then that's still a pretty decent hit. The AP scaling on the missiles has been lowered by 10%, total AD scaling on missiles has been also lowered, and the big one, which is that huge missile he fires every third missile, the damage has been increased from 50% to 100%. So all in all, for just consistent reliable damage, the ultimate has been nerfed. But when it comes to using the big missile, if you're good enough at your aiming and you're actually using it correctly and not just spamming your missiles for the sake of spamming them, you can actually do quite a bit of damage. Next up, we also have quite a big nerf happening to our favorite 420 tree up in the top lane, Maokai. Again, I already did talk about this, but I will touch on it once again. The Arcane Smash, his Q, the mana cost has been increased from 45 to starting at 45 rank 1, but going up all the way to 65 by rank 5. But the big nerf is the fact that his Sapling Toss, his E ability, no longer has a portion of its damage, because no longer will it deal damage whenever it lands on impact. Because as I'm sure most of you know, at the very moment, when you throw the sapling as it lands, it does damage. Then it starts chasing a target and it does damage. Now, the damage will only come from when the sapling chases a target and explodes and deals AoE damage to that person and anything around it. So in other words, his E ability just lost about 1/3 of its overall strength. Now again, I feel like this will hit him a bit in the laning phase, but at the same time, Maokai's main purpose is to be a tank, so the fact that he does less damage is good, because he shouldn't be tanking that hard considering he is one of the best tanks at the moment, while still dealing a very good and respectable amount of damage. Following this, we have yet another nerf, this one happening to Raze. Raze has been seeing quite a bit of gameplay, especially in higher elo and LCS, because of just how strong he really is if you understand the champion, if you've mastered them, and you're overall just a very skilled Raze player. His E ability, when doing extra damage when you get the effect or the bonus from his Q, has actually been lowered from 100% at rank 5 to only 80%. Now this is the only nerf that he has received for this patch, and it's not really the biggest thing in the entire world, but his E ability when it comes to harassing and pushing in waves is extremely important, so this will hopefully put him down a little bit and not make him as insanely strong. But again, not the biggest nerf, only hitting one of his abilities, and for the most part I still feel like Raze will be a pretty damn good champion. There are also some trap changes happening to champions like Teemo, Shaco, and Jhin. So for instance, Teemo's ultimate, Shaco's W, Jin's W, with how it overall interacts. It's nothing completely major, but the traps can now be basic attacks from a slightly longer range. On top of this, Control Wards, Oracle Alteration, and Sweeping Lens will no longer disable traps like Jhin, Nidalee, Shaco, and Teemo. It'll just reveal them. So this makes you have to be a little bit more careful because you still cannot walk over them because they will still have their effect on you, because at the very moment, if you do on the live servers, if you have, for instance, the Sweeping Lens and it reveals the trap, you can also walk over it and nothing will happen. No longer is that the case. Now there are also some changes happening to a few items, the first of which being the Black Cleaver. Now the idea here is because the Black Cleaver is actually one of the most bought items in the entire game later on into the game as well. So the goal here is to try and not make it so desirable for champions that aren't necessarily tanky bruiser type champions. So champions like Zed or even champions like Miss Fortune that are buying at the very moment, well, Riot is not very happy with that. They want champions like Darius, maybe even Fiora, maybe even someone like Renekton to be buying this item. So the way they're doing that is by increasing the health from 300 to 400, but lowering the attack damage from 50 to 40, and also changing the build path from a Phage and Caulfield's to a Phage and a Kindle Gem. Will this work? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I still feel like I'll want to buy it on Zed. I still feel like MFs will want to buy it as well. But again, you never know until it finally happens. Also, the huge changes that I talked to you guys about regarding Blade of the Ruined King have been reverted, but they will return in the next PvE cycle. So they're not completely gone, they're just not going into this specific patch just yet. But following this, there's also Duskblade of Drakthar, where the changes again, just like the Sweeping Lens, the Oracle Lens, and all that stuff, it now acts the exact same way. It'll still reveal the traps, but it will no longer disable them. Youmuu's has also received a very slight nerf, where the lethality has been lowered from 20 to 15, which kind of makes sense since lethality at the very moment and stacking all 3 lethality items is insanely overpowered. But what I honestly consider a buff has finally happened to Last Whisper. Now the AD has been lowered from 25 to 10, which obviously is a nerf, but the bonus armor penetration has been increased by 15% from 30 to 45. So later on into the game, this is actually damn good because this will help you a lot to kill those tanks, but the build path has been changed as well from a pickaxe and 425 gold to a longsword and 950 gold, which is questionable and somewhat awkward, honestly, but I mean, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. And Lord Dominic's regard has also been slightly changed, where now on the PvE server, or at least next patch, the 1.5% bonus damage it offers will only be given to you per 100 health difference rather than 50, but now it maxes at 1000 health difference rather than 500, which for the most part is the same, but now it's just a little bit more difficult to get that bonus. But either way guys, that is about it for this patch. There you have it, a whole bunch of nerfs and a few buffs here and there. Looking like Bard might be slowly coming back into the meta. Definitely want to start looking out for the Cho'Gath because he's looking like he can be pretty damn strong and a lot of people are going to want to pick him up as well. And of course, Fervor of Battle may be slowly coming back into the meta as well. But either way guys, that is it for this patch. There you have it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit it with that like button to show your support. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Check out my other videos. You know the drill. But either way, thank you so much for watching and hope to see you from my next video. Peace.